Uno, dos, uno, probando, probando. Oh yeah. Perfecto.
time we running hard, closer than close, dangerous feelings. These are the ghosts of our time. Never know what you find if you take all the chances. Got to leave it behind.
Good morning for the early birds here. So thank you very much for being here. The first thing I'm going to do for you guys is let's give an applause for yourselves for being here. Thank you very much. You guys are my heroes, hardcore. Apart from all the team in production and all the people working here, which is like, hey guys, you're going to party tonight? No, we have to work tomorrow. So you guys did the right choice. You took the right choice by being here. So our first talk of the morning is going to go about a very interesting topic, something that I think is going to be talked for a long time, especially the moment that driverless cars hit the road, which is, I don't know, you might correct me, but I would say 5 to 7 years in the coming, but more or less. Some people will say 20, but I would actually bet for 5. So our next speaker comes, even though he's very young, he's actually been working in a lot of the cutting-edge technology that's happening right now in the automotive industry. So for a while, he was within the smart mobility team as a developer, so he actually knows a lot of stuff about developing. And currently, he's the business strategy analyst at Ford, at the group that's doing the connected service team. So basically, he's going to give us an overview of, and I believe you guys have created this term, like make it drivable, the drivables. That's a term that comes from your team, and how to do developing for automotive. So please welcome our next speaker, Andreas Brockers from Ford.
Thank you. Hey, good morning. All right. So, topic is make it drivable, and what stands out is probably the word drivable, and as you just announced, is a term that came up. We were sitting in a meeting, and we were talking about smartphones, about devices, IoT, and then obviously about wearables, about smartwatches and stuff like that. And then, since we were working in the connected vehicle and services department of Ford, we actually thought, you know what? We build drivables. We want people to make their apps drivable. So we came up with that term, and now it's basically our new slogan, and I hope that during the presentation that term will make more sense to you. So, smartphone. Smartphone and car goes hand in hand. I think everybody here has a smartphone, be it Android, be it iOS, be it Windows Phone. And I think nowadays we do so many tasks with our smartphone. And as you can see, for example, here, the mobile usage, opening emails in 2015 was then 68% on mobile devices, which is basically a whole shift of all that usage of your data. It's all in the cloud, you always have it with you. And also the digital media usage, you can see it increased from 2013 to 2015. It goes more and more in the direction of mobile devices. So what's the problem right here? We all do our commute, we probably drive a lot, so we also want to consume that data and that media while we're driving. So this is basically our mantra for our whole project, and we say eyes on the road, hands on the wheel. Because once you're in the car, you should drive, you should focus on the car, on the road, and on your driving. And this is a bad example. You can see a guy sitting in the car on the highway and using his mobile phone. So the problem right here is obvious. We can see in that chart, I pulled out some charts from the internet, that people in their 20s are close to 50% using a smartphone while driving or sending a text message. And in the lower right, you can see that 39% of drivers in their 20s were in a fatal crash and used a smartphone. So how do we try to solve that problem, that you want to bring your data, your media, all your apps into the car, use it while driving in a safe way? There are a couple of solutions, and my colleague touched base on that yesterday briefly. So there are built-in solutions, which is basically also an embedded navigation, but also some manufacturers embed some certain connectivity systems in their cars for users and drivers to consume their media. There are beamed-in solutions, which would be satellite radio, and there are broad-in solutions. So back to the smartphone, we all own a smartphone, so why not take the smartphone, which has all our data and all our settings, with us in the car, and use it in a safe way. So basically, what the technology is for this using is called AppLink, and that's a broad-in solution because it's all dependent on your smartphone, on your settings, and on your data. So let me quickly explain what that technology is about. So here you can see a Ford car interior with its 8-inch capacitive touchscreen, and in the bottom you see an iPhone with an app on the left, not connected to the system, and then on the right, after you connected it to our system. So what happens is that the app then shows up on the dashboard of the car, and the user can now control it via touch on the screen, or via steering wheel controls, or even via voice. So now you can leave your phone in the dashboard, and you can actually voice control your app without even having to touch your phone. This is done by we basically distribute a package, a library, to app developers so that they can then communicate with our Ford vehicles. So what is AppLink in detail? We can control a smartphone app and the interface through the vehicle's HMI, so you do not have to touch your phone. You can use the steering wheel to skip songs. You can use the steering wheel to voice control your app, saying that you need to find something with your favorite parking app, for example. So it works with iPhone and Android right now, and the most important part is it enforces driver distraction policies. Back to that image of the guy using the smartphone in the car. So if we just would allow to mirror the screen in the car to make it a bit bigger, wouldn't solve that problem. So we actually have like a template approach, which means apps can fill data on the screen, but only in certain aspects. The buttons are restricted, and so it's in a safe way, and the driver is not distracted. It reduces cost of time in market, because otherwise, if you want to have your app, your media in the car, you would probably have to develop something embedded. And then it allows developers to retain branding in the vehicle, meaning you see your app in the car, your app shows up in the car actually. It has your app icon, it has all your identity, and it actually also eliminates the fear of product obsolescence, meaning our development in the car industry, and we know that, it's quite slow. It takes some time. If we have developed something, life cycle is usually way longer than, for example, a mobile app. So imagine you have a mobile app right now, and you embed it into a car. That's fine. Next week, it gets updated. Some apps get updated on a bi-weekly, on a weekly basis. That's just not possible if you embed it. So we as a car manufacturer have to be very careful embedding such solutions. And also, as the developer of said solutions, he also then has to make sure that it will be available through the whole life cycle. So engagement model, it's a very abstract example, but this is a mobile app. Those triangles show use cases of said mobile app on the phone. So we have certain use cases. Let's say, for example, it can stream music and so on. So what we do is we work with mobile app developers and face-to-face usually provide them with assistance and guidance. We show them our technology, and then we actually work with them, go through all of their use cases which are available on the phone or soon to be available on the phone if that software does not exist yet. And then we talk with them. Do that make sense in a car? Would you do that while driving? And is that safe to use while driving? So certain use cases might disappear, might not be able to use in car. I'll have some examples later. But on the other hand, you can say, but now you're in the car. What are use cases you haven't thought about? What is some stuff that might be for in-car usage only? Meaning, now you're driving. We actually give access to a lot of the vehicle data. So now your app actually can access, if the user allows, GPS and fuel level. So what new use cases could be made available, which are not available in the native app? So use cases. There are a couple examples now, so I think that now it's better for you to understand. First example would be we have a software and it's working on my phone, and now I connect it to our head unit. And what this basically means is I drive away from home to work, and I forgot to set my alarm in my home. So the app actually taps into the vehicle data, checks the GPS of the vehicle, knows I'm driving away from home through geofencing, and then actually gives me an alert, not on the phone as a notification so that I have to check, but actually in the car, a pop-up that you have not set your alarm and that the app thinks you're going away from home, and if you want to arm the alarm. And then you can choose, for example, yes, and then that system gets back to the app, the user just pressed yes, and the app does its thing. But that just happened in a very safe manner without the user having to check for a notification on his phone or even check manually if the alarm is set. So now, real examples, real world, our partners. A big one is Spotify. So what we do, this is, as you can see, left is native app, on the right-hand side is the implementation in the car. So we met with them a couple of times. They actually started developing their first version doing a challenge we did, doing like a hackathon. And we had face-to-face support, and it's so easy. After that hackathon, they actually had a first version running. So what we did is we talked through all the features of the app because they want to make it drivable, they want to make it useful in the car. So certain features are very good and should be adapted for in-car usage, but certain features certainly not. So for example, we're driving on the highway doing 150, and then you go to Spotify's free music search, and the keyboard pops up, and you enter an artist. Very unsafe, so we said, sure, go ahead. If we do the integration into our cars, we leave that full text search, we leave it out. And then there were also some other talks like, what could you do, what can you, how's the process of, for example, switching to your favorite playlist on the phone, and how could we make it easier to do it in the car? What voice commands would you naturally use to actually switch from, in that case, Coldplay to a more classical music? So we work with app developers trying to find those use cases, trying to find those solutions that the app is able to work in the car in a safe way. Another good example is NTV and Die Welt. Both are German apps, German news apps. And again, on the left-hand side, you see the native one. On the right-hand side, you see the in-car. So this is very special because, as you can see on the left-hand side, it looks like your usual news application. You got some images, you got the live ticker, you got some stock information, and you probably also have a lot of articles and maybe even videos. So how could you possibly use that in the car? How is it possible that an app, which basically only consists out of articles, text articles, and videos, how could you make that available in the car? We do not allow to populate the whole screen with an article, for example, while driving, or even while not driving. So we worked with them, and they actually did customer clinics with human voice actors who actually read out their articles so that they then can be made available in the car. So they, as I said, did clinics. How often would you listen to that? How many articles do you think it's feasible and would you listen to? What kind of pitch of voice do you like? So they did all that, and in the end, they had a very nice product. And what those apps now do, as opposite of their native app, is they give you push notifications from the background for breaking alerts, breaking news, and if you go into the app, as you can see on the right-hand screen there, they actually read out articles for you. And then the third one is new opportunities, basically. So my Boxman, again, an example my colleague had a quick description about yesterday. It was an app it was an app developer who came to us in a challenge in Dublin. And we hosted that challenge, meaning we did a 24-hour challenge to develop a mobile app which could work with our system. And he had a very good idea, but the app was not finished yet. So he came with an unfinished app, and obviously without car integration. So he was there the whole night, and he actually developed the app to work with the system. On the left-hand side, you can see there is a map and so on. So what that app does is it allows you to pick up packages and basically rent out your trunk when you're going somewhere to earn some money. So if you have a package, you post it on that My Boxman page, and if I open the app, I can see available packages around me. I can pick it up, I can bring it to wherever you want it to, and I get some money, and you have your package shipped. So we have the map view on the left. So what did he do? We actually, again, used the vehicle data and checked with GPS once I get into the car if there are any packages available around me, and if I want to take it because the destination is close to my actual destination. So he has a list of packages close to him, and then he can actually navigate to them. So that means your app is even more integrated into the car, since it can then open up the embedded navigation and start navigating to your destination. Once there, you confirm pickup, you load, the package distributor confirms the pickup, and you go to your destination. So this app wasn't finished, had no AppLink integration at all, and they participated, as I said, in a challenge in Dublin, and they are now launched with Ford, AppLink Guide. So it's Sync AppLink. We got a developer program, and the big thing here is not we build drivables, but we love startups. So very old company, very slow company, Ford. We are in the automotive industry, and it takes some time for us to actually develop our products, but once we have developed those, it has a long life cycle, as I said. So what we possibly want to work with startups. With that program, we actually want to work with startups, as I said, because we want to bring media which users consume into the app, into the car, excuse me. We want to bring apps into the car so that drivers can use them in a safe way. That's basically the technology I wanted to touch base on, and I left some time for questions if you have any. Thanks.
So Andreas, thank you very much. So do we have any
Sure.
questions, guys? First one over there.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much. Two questions. One is, who is the owner of the data? So who has to, is the user who has to have the permission for access the data? What kind of data you can access from
Sure.
the app?
So whenever an app or a developer requests data from the car, it goes at first through our backend has to approve that an app can access that data, and whenever an app wants to access that data, I'll come to data sets later, the user actually has to consent that the app gets that data. So the vehicle, if the user then says yes, and the app, for example, subscribes to GPS, the car would update the GPS position to the app every second. We have a huge set of vehicle data. We actually have a documentation on our developer site, which is, by the way, developer.ford.com. We have stuff ranging from GPS to belt status, speed, also fuel. Right now, it depends on the architecture of the vehicle, but you can see the full list on our portal.
Question? No more questions, guys? Well, I have a question.
Sure.
So this is what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the app environment going to look like when you take the driving part out of it? Where, the security doesn't, in terms of the physical integrity, doesn't matter anymore when you don't have to drive because the car drives for you.
Right. I think that the whole interaction with the car and with the infotainment system might change once we reach a certain level of autonomous driving. But still, that's a solution which is out right now and has been out for a while, actually, also on our older vehicles. So there needs to be a solution for the next years where we, even though we start with autonomous driving and go through the different levels, if that's a known thing, the level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we still need said solution. And I think that that solution can maybe open up as higher we go through the levels of autonomous driving. Sure.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have another question regarding the users in the back seats.
Yeah.
Is Ford going to develop other, stuff like films and other things for, to be used not for the driver, but for the kids, for instance?
So that technology actually is completely aimed at the driver. That one I just explained, meaning once you connect it, you can actually should not, and cannot use that app on your phone because it's, as I said, tailored to the driver and not even the person on the passenger seat. Back row, there might be possibilities to also add screens, and then obviously the screens in the background would have different permissions in regards to driver distraction, which that's why it's called driver distraction, than the main screen, I'd say. So technically possible, I say yes.
Okay.
Would you see it as being a source of particular competitive advantage for Ford, the technology that you're working on? How would this compare with other manufacturers? And ultimately, is it actually going to help you sell any more cars?
Right. So how does it compare? There are very many different kind of technologies for in-car usage of, in that case, mobile apps. For example, there's that screen mirroring. Also, basically partially done by Google and Apple with Android Auto and CarPlay. But then there's also installed into the car by a dealership, for example, or even the OEM during manufacturing. And then there is a combination of both. And we decided to stick to our brought-in solution, means everything stays on the phone, even the connection of the internet, your data, and so on. So what the car actually is it serves as a secondary display and enables usage of voice and the controls, but all the data, the brain, everything remains on the phone. So to stick to that example is if you take your phone out and buy another car or get to an older car or switch cars, it would work the same. All the data, all the settings, they would work the same. So that's what we ultimately did as a decision to go with AppLink as a brought-in solution instead of like built-in or pre-installed, and help us sell more cars. I mean, we have to go with the flow, I'd say, and users actually want to use their apps, and it's not only to sell more cars, but it's also to, I think, make a statement that we want to have users use their apps, but in a safe way.
I have one final question, please. Just one.
Thank you. It's for thinking to, well, basically you said that it's going to be one direction communication, so from the phone to the HMI, right? Is for thinking to actually providing information from the car to the mobile phone?
Oh, that's the vehicle data I was talking about.
The vehicle data, so you actually transmit CAN networks signals to the telephones?
Exactly. Okay. So there's a rich data set we make available through AppLink, which can then be subscribed to, and then the app notifies, the car notifies the app of data changes, be it GPS, be it speed. So the app can actually, the only thing the app can write into the car is on the display, but it can, if the user consents and if it has permissions, it can read a lot of stuff, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was it. Andreas, thank you
you
very much for your talk. Guys, thank you very much. So, hello, the newcomers. I hope you're not too wasted from yesterday's party. Welcome to the Sandbox, to the Sandbox stage. I hope you're enjoying so far. Last day, but not the least. And I want to welcome our next speaker on the stage. He's going to talk about, I think, one of the most disruptive technologies out there right now. And we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg of what's going to be possible with this technology. So we're going to talk about the use cases and opportunities in the blockchain technology. And I think our next speaker has extensive knowledge on the matter. He used to work in a long time ago at companies like Amex and Citigroup. He worked for a while at PayPal, working with developers, with startups, and in the incubator relationships, doing a lot of hackathons. At one point, I'm guessing Robert went like, I need to do my own thing. So he founded, and he's the co-founder and right now the president of what's called the Blockchain University since 2014. And since then, they've educated 350 entrepreneurs and are inspired around 60 projects dealing with blockchain all over the world, including places like Silicon Valley, India, Japan, and among them, one of the most prestigious scientific institutions like MIT Media Lab. So please welcome our next speaker, Robert Schwenker. Big applause.
Hi all, thank you, good morning. I'd like to talk about some of the use cases and opportunities, and then we'll take some questions at the end. My introduction's been given. I was recently, last year was in India, educating a bunch of people at Infosys. They came out with a big platform this April called EdgeVerve, which is their financial system for banks, essentially on blockchain. And most recently, I've been running some hackathons in Nashville and Brazil. I was in Brussels yesterday at the European IP Observatory. So we were doing an exploratory workshop on intellectual property and blockchain. And at the Media Lab, I ran a cryptocurrency boot camp for 25 scholars, underrepresented, and women. So let's take a look at some of the use cases, and as well as the startup ecosystem, the investment ecosystem, the challenges, and some future aspects. So how is it that we have this open source software sitting on the internet with a market cap of $10 billion, and this thing hasn't been hacked in over 6 or 7 years, since 2009. It was released on Satoshi Nakamoto's network of servers. It's pretty fascinating, the fact that you have on the internet this massive honeypot of value. And it's running on hundreds of thousands of machines. In fact, the total hashing power of these machines is greater than the world's supercomputers combined, times 13,000. So we have a global computer network of machines maintaining this $10 billion worth of value called Bitcoin. So we have this open source software, which is supporting Bitcoin, and underneath it is this technology called blockchain. So you might know a blockchain is an append-only database of transactions. You can look at the blockchain, for instance, if you go to like blockchain.info, you can see the blockchain live at blockchain.info. Dan Moorhead of Pantera Capital explains that Bitcoin is like a missing protocol in the internet stack of protocols. So we all know what HTTP is, we all know what HTTPS is. We figured that out. It took about 10 years to get from the SMTP protocol to Gmail. So it's going to take some time before the internet of value really happens. But it's happened right now through Bitcoin and also Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies. So we're in the beginning stages. We're like at the beginning of building the railroad. So there's opportunities that exist, but they're very difficult because we're in this kind of wild west. So some of the key challenges I see is that there's not a global identity system that we have on the internet as such. It's a pretty primitive kind of thing. So it's difficult, for instance, for banks to do cryptocurrencies. It's hard for them to do things with blockchain because there's not an identity system. So we're seeing banks getting together with government to try to reimagine how we do identity. How do you restore a blockchain? No one's really had to do this yet. So if a blockchain fails, when you restore it, do you sign it? Do you have to replay the transactions and have them re-signed? These are some challenges in this technology. There's a lack of standards right now. It's very early, as I said, so we don't see many standards around types of cryptography. We don't see any standards around identity. How do you use blockchain technologies? In terms of the statutes of limitations, imagine that There was an error with cryptography in a transaction that you made 5 years ago. Well, are you still liable for that transaction? So there's been over 1,000 startups, in fact, been invested in. At the time, over $1.5 billion has been invested. So, in fact, there's been a number of them this year and so forth. This number's gone up somewhat. There's a lot of large financial institutions getting involved in the investment area. And there's a number of new VC firms that have sprung up to invest in blockchain and Bitcoin types of startups. This is from a couple years ago, but a couple things to note here that about 10 or 15 companies have raised 2/3 of this $1.5 billion, including 21, which is kind of, it started out as a hardware company, but they've shifted more to a software platform. There was a 21 computer and such. Coinbase is an exchange. They've raised over $100 million, as is Circle's an exchange. Zappo's a very interesting use case. The founder of Zappo, Wences Casares, grew up in Argentina, where the currency failed 3 times in his lifetime. And so he created Zappo as a kind of a Bitcoin wallet, an exchange. You can buy Bitcoin there. He's now sitting on PayPal's board. And interestingly, on his board is Dee Hock of Visa, and John Reed, the ex-CEO and founder of Citigroup, as well as Larry Summers, who was the ex-Treasury Secretary in the Clinton administration. So you have some very powerful people entering in the space and sitting on the boards of these startups. Most of these startups, in fact, are in the Bay Area, including Ripple, which just raised another $55 million. However, earlier this year, investments tended to be outside the U.S., except for now Ripple has come in. As I said, many financial institutions have gotten into investing in the space. They've also done lots of research. Most banks have a blockchain research team now. There's a number of consortiums. There's over 12 consortiums globally of companies getting together to try to figure out how to use blockchain technologies. Blockchains are typically used between organizations that have semi-trusted relationships. So typically you don't have like an internal blockchain. IBM has an example of an internal blockchain application, but they're generally done between semi-trusted organizations. So banks could do settlement on a blockchain, and rather than maintaining individual ledgers, they can have a shared ledger to do this type of settlement. The largest consortium that we know is R3CEV. They've put together a group of 60 global banks and insurance companies and such, and they're doing a number of proof of concepts and quite a lot of research in the blockchain area. This is a document, this is a page from William Mogayar's book on blockchain technologies. This is about financial services, but you'll see here at the very bottom level, you have the infrastructure and base protocols, which include like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Stellar, and such, and the miners. And then you have a number of middleware services and APIs and such. But where the greatest opportunity is perhaps are in developing applications on these various platforms. So in terms of use cases, quite a number of them in many areas. So lots of imagination is going on in terms of what blockchain technology can be used for, in terms of IP, as we talked about, digital trading of assets, proof of ownership of things. So one of the remarkable things about blockchain technology is that, for instance, if we use the Bitcoin system as a point of reference, if I send you a Bitcoin, or I send you a portion of a Bitcoin, and I sent it today, let's say I meant to send you 1 Bitcoin, but I sent you 10 Bitcoins, that transaction cannot be reversed. And we can always look back and see that I sent you 10 Bitcoins. Tomorrow, you might send me some of those Bitcoins back. You wouldn't have to, but it's irreversible. So finally on the internet, we've been able to create a database with irreversible properties, immutable properties. So this is one of the profound things about the blockchain technology. It's also allowed for the emergence of what's called a decentralized organization and or a decentralized application. So Bitcoin is an example of a decentralized organization. Who controls Bitcoin? Well, no central authority does. Many of the maintainers of this Bitcoin network happen to be in China. Many of the software developers for Bitcoin happen to reside at Blockstream, which is a startup in the Bay Area. And oddly, about 1% of the wallet addresses in Bitcoin control over 99% of the Bitcoin. So that's kind of an interesting fact about how some things have become somewhat centralized in the ecosystem. But there is no central authority. There's no one person you could go to or no organization you could go to take Bitcoin down as a system. So it's probably one of the biggest systems that's sitting there on the internet with no central authority. So people are creating organizations that don't have a central authority. So imagine like a ride-sharing company without a central authority. So if I wanted you to drive me somewhere, or vice versa, I could just pay you directly. We could have that transaction, but that could be a system that's sitting on the internet without a central authority. So I think we'll see the emergence of decentralized organizations that resemble things like Facebook, Airbnb, and Uber without a central company. So how will those companies form? We'll look at that a little bit later. So IOTA Token is a very interesting startup that's using blockchain technologies to manage Internet of Things devices. So imagine that you have 1,000 drones going around and doing things. How do they maintain themselves? It turns out that each drone could have a wallet, and that wallet could have money in it. When it flies somewhere and delivers a package, it gets money put into that wallet. When it goes to get recharged or repaired, it pays out of that wallet. So this is a startup that's working with IoT and blockchain. 21, as I mentioned, is the highest funded blockchain type of a company. And initially they were focused on hardware and set-top boxes and having mining chips in these devices. Very recently they've pivoted. This was started by Balaji Srinivasan, who's a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. Blockstream, as I pointed out, has raised about $74 million. They have about 9 or 10 of the core Bitcoin developers sitting in-house. So they're creating something called side chains. So the idea that you could take the Bitcoin blockchain and instead of forking it and creating a colored coin or an altcoin, you could take the Bitcoin blockchain and create what's called a side chain, which would be mined separately, and it could be permissioned. So the Bitcoin blockchain is permissionless. Anybody can enter into the Bitcoin system as a miner, as a validator, as a user, as an app developer. But you could create permission systems off of the Bitcoin blockchain with side chains. Blockstream hasn't released a production version of this, though they do have testnet services for side chains. Chain is a company also in the Bay Area that's doing asset issuance and such. They're trying to reimagine financial services by creating financial assets on blockchains and using those to transform financial services. Abra's a startup that's been focused mainly on remittance. Abra received investment in part from American Express Ventures. They've raised about $12 million, and they're used to send money cross-border. So what's the beauty? If you've never done a Bitcoin transaction, I highly recommend that as your homework. Create a wallet, a Bitcoin wallet. They're easy to get, and do a transaction with somebody. It's very simple to move money with Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies. So I can send you, interestingly enough, I can send you a penny or I can send you $1 million, and you can be anywhere in the world. You'll receive that within seconds, and you'll be able to spend it potentially within an hour. So I can send you money anywhere in the world, and it'll cost about 10 to 20 cents. That's revolutionary. The fact that you can send money in huge amounts or in microtransactions, and the cost is very small. So other startup opportunities, we should look at public platforms on which one could build. Of course, there's the Bitcoin ecosystem or the Ethereum. These are open source software, so you can just copy them and create your own cryptocurrency. There's over 1,000 cryptocurrencies that have been created mostly with Bitcoin. So people have just copied the open source software, changed parameters in it, and created their own cryptocurrencies. There's a number of private platforms on which one can build things. Ripple is one. They've also created a new protocol called Interledger, and Interledger is used to talk between blockchains. Hyperledger, kind of an interesting conglomerate of software. Digital Asset Holdings is another startup, raised about $60 million. Blythe Masters, who came out of JP Morgan, has created a digital asset holding. She bought a small startup from the Bay Area called Hyperledger. She donated that name to the open source project now called Hyperledger. IBM donated about 45,000 lines of code to Hyperledger, and Intel also contributed about 20,000 lines of code. So it's a big open source effort. It's now sitting at the Linux Foundation. It's one of the most well-known projects for creating blockchain applications. Others are multi-chain. Eris, there's a little error here. That should be Eris. They're now known as Monax. And R3's Corda. So R3 has also come up, not really with what they call a blockchain. They call it a distributed ledger technology. So there is a difference. Blockchain is a form of distributed ledger technology. But there's other things in distributed ledger technology, such as transaction chains, and that are part of this ecosystem, but one to take note of. So again, a blockchain is one form of what they call DLT, or distributed ledger technologies. But there's transaction chains. Open chain is an example of a transaction chain. It's actually a client-server model, whereas most of this is sort of a peer-to-peer model. So interestingly, these cryptocurrencies have really begun to transform venture capital and venture capital investment. So traditionally in venture capital, returns may happen after 10 years. They're typically done by VCs. Many of them are on Sand Hill Road in the Silicon Valley. But one can actually release cryptocurrency as part of your company's stock, if you will. So imagine an initial cryptocurrency offering. A number of companies have done this, and a number of decentralized autonomous organizations have done this. So they release tokens. Bitcoin is one such token. Bitcoin is kind of a user token. There's a company called Steam, which has released a debt token. And others have created like equity tokens. So you can issue tokens, and you can use that as your economy. As people buy those tokens, they're essentially investing in your company. So I spent a small amount of money to invest in Factum, which is using tokens to represent land titles, for instance. Ethereum raised $18 million, so they did a crowd sale. They were selling their Ethereum token. People would invest in Ethereum by investing in Bitcoin. And so Ethereum, in fact, has a cryptocurrency called Ether, and it's now worth $1 billion. The market cap of Ethereum is $1 billion. They have this platform, which is kind of Bitcoin 2.0. So with Ethereum, you can build what are called decentralized autonomous apps. You can create whole organizations on Ethereum. It's best known for is something called a smart contract. Smart contract is basically a program, typically an open source program, that lives on a blockchain that does something. You could use it for voting. So many use cases are there for these types of smart contracts. So I could say, if the weather in Madrid here goes above 30 degrees, that I will pay you $1,000. If it doesn't go over 30 degrees, you will pay me $1,000. We could do this as a smart contract on this Ethereum platform. However, some kind of crazy things have happened on the Ethereum platform. Someone created a smart contract called the DAO. And again, the DAO, in this case, is Decentralized Autonomous Organization. They were creating a kind of a Kickstarter on Ethereum. And tens of thousands of people around the globe invested in the DAO. And you could invest tiny amounts of money. You could invest $1, $1,000, $1 million. And over a period of a month, $160 million was raised. And there were some software developers out there who were going, hey, there's a bug in that smart contract. You have to be careful. And there were other people saying, hey, you've already raised $1 million, you've already raised $10 million, why don't you stop this smart contract? It looks too smart, if you will. And in fact, after about a month, a hacker came in and they hacked 1/3 of this smart contract. What happened is Ethereum as a currency forked. The Ethereum Foundation said that they were going to change the code and fork the code and have a separate code now called the Ethereum, the main Ethereum chain, which is worth about $1 billion. But there's a separate Ethereum called the Ethereum Classic chain, which now resides, and there's a lot of this money residing on the Classic chain. And it has approximately $100 million of value on it. So Ethereum is now forked. There's 2 Ethereums. There's 2 Ethereum code bases. And that was happening because of all this smart contract, interestingly. So it's a very volatile ecosystem, very exciting ecosystem. Another example is Economy. They've raised $10 million in a crowd sale. And they did it through people investing into this Economy, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Lisk, and actually fiat currencies. And over 3,500 investors were there. So what they're trying to do is create an index and a fund management platform of cryptocurrencies. Steam is a social media platform. Imagine you get paid for putting photos on Facebook. That's pretty interesting. I'm an advisor to another company called Yours.network. They're doing a similar type of thing where you get paid for your content. So Steam actually raised quite a lot of money in their initial crowd sale. It was approximately some $20 or $30 million initially. It went to around $400 million, and now it's kind of come back down. I think their market cap is $65 million. But I'm saying market cap here. So these people did a crowd sale. They sold stock or coin in their company, which was released on a blockchain. So anybody could participate. And they create a circular economy because these Steam tokens are used kind of as a debt token on the Steam platform. So it's a whole new paradigm of venture capital, a different types of business model that's here. So just looking into the future a little bit, I see that blockchain will kind of, as a term, will kind of buried into kind of internet protocols. We won't be talking a lot more about blockchain over the next couple years. We'll start to talk more about distributed ledger technology, I think. Very interestingly, the governments will start to issue cryptocurrencies. So what can happen with cryptocurrencies? For settlements, remittance, those sorts of things can happen in a much smoother way with less friction. But you can also start to do microtransactions. So someone comes to your website, if you have a website, and they can pay a half a penny to see a page. If they scroll down, they have to pay another half penny. They scroll down. You couldn't do these types of things before with traditional fiat currencies, but you can do it with digital cryptocurrencies. Barbados has released a token that's tied to the Bitcoin token. And so they're using it for international settlement. So smaller countries are creating cryptocurrencies which allow them to kind of bypass the traditional banking systems. Bank of England is looking at issuing sterling on the blockchain. Federal Reserve is looking at what they're calling FedCoin, creating a federal coin as a cryptocurrency. I mentioned Internet of Things will start to adopt cryptocurrencies in a big way. And intellectual property will be secured on blockchains and such. So we've got $1 billion in venture capital, $1.5 billion has been invested into hundreds of startups. 50 of the world's largest banks have joined the R3 consortium, along with some other insurance companies and such. And we're creating blockchain types of applications that are disrupting many industries. So with that, I'll take some questions.
Hello. You started your presentation talking about computing capacity. Who owns these computers? The miners? And who are the miners? Which is the profile of the miners?
So the question is about who owns the total sum of the computers running the Bitcoin network is greater than the world's supercomputers times 13,000. They're anonymous actors by and large. They're in fact mining pools. They're owned by individuals globally. Many of them are in China. So it's estimated that over 70% of the Bitcoin miners are located in China. But anybody can enter into the system. It used to be that you could mine with just a laptop and your CPU. Then you had to move to a graphical user interface, a GPU. And then now there's a special ASIC chip, ASIC chip that's used for mining. But anybody can enter into the system. Thank you.
There.
Hi, good morning.
Hi. Morning.
What are the most powerful use cases that you see in blockchain for charities?
For
charities.
the most useful blockchain types of applications for charities right now, today? It's a good question. What I've seen most is kind of creating fundraising for charities. It doesn't seem to have worked out so well. We're in such an infancy in this kind of technology. There has Mike Hearn, who came from Google, and I think he's now at R3, if I recall correctly, created something called Lighthouse, which is a kind of a Kickstarter for fundraising and such. That's an open source project, Lighthouse. So people have been forking that and using that for charities. But I think fundraising is what I've seen most charities done. In terms of what I think the most useful use case for charities, again, I think it's probably around the fundraising. So when you get to Ethereum smart contracts, many things can potentially be there, but it's so early in the Ethereum ecosystem, and things are just kind of exploding here and there that it'll take a couple more years before that system becomes very stable, I think. So, thank you for the question. I think there's a lady.
Thanks. I have two questions. The first one is the blockchain is supposed to be secured by design, but today there are still some security problems on the endpoints, especially. So where do you think we need to act to really make the blockchain completely secure from end to end?
8 points, what did you say?
Yeah, I mean, today there are hacks. The blockchain is not secured, and especially at the end points of the blockchain, like people who need to enter the network.
Sure.
So what do you see are the main priorities today to make the blockchain secured from end to end?
Okay, and your other question?
And my other question is on the use cases. What, in your opinion, is the good recipe where there's a real business case for the blockchain? Because, for instance, there's a lot of use cases where it's only about optimization, and there are simpler solutions. For instance, managing the IoT, we can do that without the blockchain, or using time stamping solutions, for instance. So, yeah.
So in terms of the security end-to-end, the blockchain itself has never been significantly hacked. What you see are hacks at the endpoints, as you said, the on-roads and off-ramps. So Bitfinex is a cryptocurrency exchange which was hacked for $80 million a couple of years ago. Mt. Gox was hacked for $400 million in 2013. So cryptocurrency exchanges typically hold people's private keys, and there's sort of the system administration around that has become weakened, and there's social hacks and such. So in those cases, it's not really blockchain technology that's insecure. It's typical computer administration processes that are insecure and such. So the blockchain technology is completely secure, as that we've seen. Like I said, over $10 billion is sitting there on the open internet. You can look at the transactions as they happen second by second. The transactions themselves are not encrypted. They use cryptography, but they're not encrypted. You can see the value going from one person to another, whether it's 10 cents or $10 million. So blockchain technology is extremely secure. It's how you apply that. So we could take the example of fiat currency, right? So fiat currency, if I leave $50 right there, well, that's not the feature of the currency. It was the stupidity of myself just leaving it there and walking away. Someone takes away with it. So that's not the fiat currency that's insecure itself. It's just as it's applied in the case of the exchanges. In terms of the use cases, I know we're out of time here, but use cases, I'm sorry, a little bit about your question was?
What is the good recipe where there's a real business case for the blockchain?
So, like I said, there's been hundreds of startups that have tried, and many are failing. I think as the Ethereum grows out, I think there will be many interesting kind of use cases there. But interesting recipes, I think that's up for us startups and entrepreneurs to figure out. Timestamping, I think, as you pointed out, is a very powerful sorts of thing. So Dan Taylor is the photographer here, was talking about that and how you can secure intellectual property assets, such as photographs on a blockchain. I think timestamping them and putting them on a blockchain is a fantastic use case.
Okay, well, we're out of time. So
I'll be around if people have questions.
I know, but we need to keep
I
going.
mean on the side or on the back.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if you want, he's going to be around,
Sure.
so he can get your questions. Robert, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge. Please, big applause for Robert.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And so, our next speaker is someone that I'm very happy to introduce. He's an old friend. We've been together in many different conferences. Sorry. He's going to talk about how do you disrupt Silicon Valley, which is big talk. I hope you're bringing the guns to accompany that. And what are the technologies for the third revolution? Now, he has an extensive background as a serial entrepreneur. He's taking 3 companies from idea to exit. He currently released his first book, I believe, which is called The Accelerated Startup, The New Business School. And he's, among other things, he's the executive producer of a very well-known conference that's called Adventure Conference that does events in 7 different countries. And I've been invited to the one in Kiev, so thank you very much. So please welcome my good friend Vitaly Golom, disrupting Silicon Valley. Big applause.
Thanks, bud. Hey guys, good morning. So thanks for sticking around. Let's see if we get the slides going. Here we go. Okay, so everybody knows Keanu Reeves. I found that not many people know his first movie, which was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So before Bill and Ted, there was Bill and Dave. So I lead investments at HP Tech Ventures, which is what Alex didn't mention, which is my current role. And HP was Silicon Valley's original startup. So in 1939, raised a $538 round from their professor, Frederick Terman. The first customer was Walt Disney, and the first products were the oscillators. The company today is over $50 billion a year. The company split actually in 2. It used to be over 300,000 people. Now we're at 50,000 people. And we're now looking to the future. So where does the company go as a kind of a fourth transition going into a completely new business for HP? So, but enough about us. I wanted to talk to you about you. So how many of you are entrepreneurs here? Okay. How many of you have raised money or planning to raise money soon? Okay, so hopefully I'll give you some ideas on kind of the future and on where you should be looking. So a typical career that our parents want us to have, you get good grades, you get into a good university, you get into a good company, you get regular promotions, and then one day you retire, play golf, and die. Right? This is the American dream. You can replace golf with something else in Europe. And a startup career, if successful, looks a little bit different. Everybody thinks it looks something like this. You read about some overnight success on TechCrunch, but in reality, these are overnight successes with a lot of pain, and it looks a little bit more like this. So, one of my favorite quotes from Ben Horowitz, as a startup CEO, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried. So I can tell you from experience, this is what it's really like. Some of you in the audience who have already gone through this process know this as well. So, startups take a long time, and you may end up looking like Gandalf here by the time you're done with yours. So if we look at it, it takes about a year to develop an idea. It takes about 2 years to see if anybody cares, if you'll have any customers whatsoever. And if successful, it'll take you 5 to 8 years to actually go through the whole cycle of the company, right? From idea to exit, or from idea to burnout, and you moving on to something else. So it eats up a lot of your own personal time. You can always make more money. You can always raise more money, but you can never get more time. If you start out really young, say straight out of college, you can spend a couple years on your first startup, then you fail gracefully in most cases. Then you might go back to business school, or you might go work at a large company, and then you'll be a little bit smarter, so your second startup will fail faster, right? Your third one will be really good. It'll take about 5 years of your life. Congratulations, you're in your third, right? And if you keep going on the fourth one, you'll be in your mid-30s. So if by that time you haven't found success, you're going to have to go to your mom and say, Mom, you were right. I should go get a real job, right? So it takes a long time to go through this process. And my hope is to give you some ideas of how to go through this. It's a tough journey. So here's a few ways that we can increase your odds of success, right? So what we have to ask ourselves is how, where, and what should you be doing for this, right? To find success in the startup world. So first of all, how? Now, a startup is an experiment in search of a business model, right? It is a really special kind of a new company. It is not a smaller version of a large company, right? Because you're starting, by definition, you're trying to solve a problem that nobody solved before, right? Or in a new way. So you create a scalable startup, you start looking for the business model, right? You start looking for your customer. How are you going to them? You start building a repeatable sales model, and then you start realizing what your business is really all about. You start building a management structure around it. If you're lucky, you get into this transition period where you scale really quickly, and when you get to about break even or start making profit, you have about 150 people, you start hiring gray-haired managers that have a lot of experience. That's when you turn into a company. Right? So the goal is to not stay a startup forever. The goal is not to keep going to startup competitions and to conferences and hand out your CEO business card but not make any progress. Right? You want to graduate to become a real company. That's very important. Now, if we get a little bit more kind of academic about it, Clayton Christensen developed the technology lifecycle S-curve methodology. Right? So if we look at effort over time and results, with each new technology, we have a period, kind of a long period of research where you have universities putting money into it, R&D labs from large companies like HP putting money into a new technology, and then you get to the sweet spot where this technology is mature and you can start building new businesses on the backbone of it. Right? This is your innovation sweet spot. This is where the startup should be being built. Right? This is where you can build products rapidly, you can start the barriers to now, there's also an end to mature companies own that category, right? So you wouldn't start a new network today and try to compete with Facebook. That's already done, right? You have to look to the future as far as what you need to go out there and work. Special versus a small business is the staged financing, right? So over time, and look at the amount of money that the company loses, right? So for a while, you're going to be spending money before you can build a product. Right? And hopefully at some point, you go break even, and this is how you scale stage financing over this life cycle. So with a concept, you can raise seed capital. With early validation, you're still losing money. You raise Series A. In serious market traction, you start converting leads into customers. You start raising subsequent rounds of financing until you get to break-even point, into predictable scale, and that's hopefully when you IPO. So this is kind of an ideal view. This is very special. It's not something you would do with a lifestyle business like a restaurant or a hotel. Right? There, you're trying to set up all the processes correct from day one. It's relatively known what you should be doing, and you're profitable pretty soon. But in the startup world, you are negative for a long time because you're trying to create new technology, right? And you need to invest in that. So if we look at innovation cycles over the last 60 years or so in Silicon Valley, you can see these technology S-curves. I don't know how well you can see it here, but you can see integrated circuits, for example, birthed National Semiconductor, well, Fairchild first, but National Semiconductor, Intel, AMD, etc. You can see personal computing taking off, HP, IBM, etc. in there. And you can see they overlap. This is why venture capitalists look at different curves and go after these new trends. Because there's a very short opportunity period where this new technology, whole new business. In reality, we're solving the same old boring problems, but in a much faster, more efficient, and cheaper way, right, with a new technology paradigm. So if we step back a little bit, we're not in Silicon Valley right now. We're in Madrid. And we look at kind of an innovation concept of what's an innovation cluster? What's required for everything to work? What's an ecosystem? So certainly we need entrepreneurs. We also need venture capitalists. That's pretty well known. But in reality, we also need large companies. The large companies are investing in R&D. They're strategic investors. They're potential acquirers for these new technologies. 99 out of 100 companies that don't die, the startups, will be acquired rather than go IPO, right? So this is very important to have these large acquirers there. But we also need universities to graduate engineers and to graduate business students that will go after these markets. We also need a professional management layer. And I'll tell you a little secret, this is really what makes Silicon Valley special, this management layer. In Silicon Valley, we have about 1,000 professionals. A startup from zero to hero, right? That is very special. And when large companies from Europe go and they want to scale from 50 to 100 to 1,000 people, there's really one right now that has this management layer that's required for this, right? Now, you also need professionals. You need lawyers that understand, right? This is very special. You need companies. So you need that environment as well. You need government support. And it's very lucky to have the proper government support. Some other countries that I visit have zero government support. Might have large pools of engineering and business, well, either engineering usually or business talent, usually not both, right? The government support to create this environment is crucial. And if you read about Silicon Valley history, you'll realize that the US government and the Defense Department was actually Silicon Valley's first customer for the first 20 or so years, right? Up until it started investing and kind of matching dollar per dollar or $2 to 1 for investors to come over from the East Coast and start investing in Silicon Valley. So the full name of venture capital is actually adventure capital, right? Because it's seen as really risky, right? So it takes government to kind of kickstart this environment. Excuse me. So all of this lives in large pools of private capital that gets invested, and then ultimately some kind of a public stock market to come full circle and exit and turn it back into liquid cash. Right? So this is what's required for an innovation cluster to work, and it really requires a balance of all these factors. This is what makes Silicon Valley special. This is what makes Israel, that's been able to do this very quickly, pretty special, as well as other smaller places like Estonia, right, famously. Now, the clusters are really important because they also create a very healthy competitive environment, right? And you're increasing productivity of companies because you have competition. You're driving direction and pace of innovation. And ultimately, you're stimulating the formation of new businesses because you have competition. All of these things are really good. Having competition is really healthy because it'll make companies do their best. Now, this may be getting a little bit out of date at this point, but you can see that Silicon Valley is number 1, Tel Aviv is number 2, Boston is now ranked 6th, when it was number 2 about 15 years ago in the first dot-com wave. So this is very fluid. And the question is, what kind of technology are we looking at in the future, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and what areas of the world have a natural environment and kind of natural pool of talent and resources to capitalize on it, right? Even if you look inside the US, Europeans think, okay, I'm going to just move my business to the US at some point. You have to really think about what business you're in. So for example, if you're in entertainment, you should be really in LA, in Los Angeles. If you're in financial world, you should be in New York or maybe even London. It's much closer here, right? So you have to look at, and there are a lot of different clusters of innovation. It's not just about software. It's kind of how business has worked for many, many years, right? And it's kind of created these natural zones. And you can overlay the same map in Europe, in Asia, etc. So big question is, what should you be working on? Where should you be investing your own personal, non-refundable lifetime, right? Your years of hard work. And you have to really look at where technology is going, right? What's coming up next. So Chris Dixon, also at Andreessen Horowitz, he wrote a great post on kind of where technology is today and where it's headed. So if we look at, obviously, PC era, you're not going to start a new computer company today, right? The internet is pretty much spoken for as well, right? Even Yahoo couldn't keep up. And arguably the mobile era and the apps world is more or less done as well, right? So the question is, where are we going next? And there's a few areas that I'll tell you that we're really interested in, that we've done a lot of research on, kind of from our context, that I can tell you that I'm excited about. And those 4 areas are hypermobility, Internet of all things, smart machines, and 3D transformation. So together we call this blended reality experiences. All these things that will forever connect our real and virtual worlds. So if we think about hypermobility today, we think about and take for granted the fact that we have high-speed internet in our pocket. Right? This didn't exist 10 years ago. We have smartwatches that track us, track our activity, track our biomarkers, etc. Well, hypermobility of the future will be nanocomputing, computers that live inside us. Pardon me. So this is already happening. There are already companies and labs that are doing research, right? It's at the beginning of that S-curve, where companies are looking at how we can fuse humans and computers, right? This is a very exciting space. If we look at IoT, Internet of All Things, well, we call it Internet of All Things, but in reality, it's much like the letter E was used in the first dot-com wave, right? E-commerce, e-this, e-that, it was kind of glued on. Now, IoT is a bit of a buzzword that's being glued on to everything. But in reality, Internet will be in everything. Every single device, every single product, every single piece of furniture will be connected to the Internet and collect data. So that opens up a whole new world of opportunities for you to be able to work up and down that stack, right? So security within that stack, or different use cases, different business cases, things we can't even think of yet. Every single thing will be connected to the internet in one way, shape, or form. Now, smart machines is an area of robotics. So the first generation of robotics were basically hydraulic muscles. And now we're talking about hydraulic brains, machines that can make decisions on their own. Right? And this is a very interesting area of AI. Now, if we look at a few examples, so there's a game called Breakout. Whoops, let's go back. There's a game called Breakout, and some researchers have taught the computer to basically use machine learning to play the game itself. You basically have a little bar at the bottom, and you use a ball to destroy kind of a brick wall, right? So at first, the game, the AI was not very good at the game. It just kept missing the balls. But within minutes, it became as good as the best human player, and ultimately figured out very quickly how to beat the whole game in one move, right? So that's all fun and games, but in reality, this is machine learning and training algorithms to solve problems we can't on our own, right? AI is already smarter than us. So if we apply this to biology, there was a puzzle that for 100 years scientists were trying to solve, which is how do flatworms regenerate themselves? And obviously this has ramifications for health and how we're going to regenerate our own organs. Well, the AI solved it in a couple of days, a puzzle that human scientists could not solve for 100 years. And last year, in Japan, there was a little bit of a phenomenon. This robot called Pepper sold 1,000 units in minutes. And this is a very special kind of robot, and we're kind of getting into these home companions now, because it can read, recognize, and emote. Right? It can recognize emotions, and it can show emotion. And for Japan, this is a big deal, because the average population now, average age is over 60. These are going to be the home companions of the future. So if you've seen the movie Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, it's happening. Within 10, 20 years, we'll have these companion robots that will do a lot of the work around the house. We already have industrial robots that are automating a lot of the production and manufacturing, but this emotional component that humans need is coming as well. Now, the last piece is 3D transformation, and I'm very excited about this because, well, we're already in that business, and if you were here bright and early this morning, which I doubt many of you were because there was a party last night, you saw somebody from HP's 3D printing unit talk about this. So pre-industrial revolution, everything was made by hand, right? Not that long ago. After the Industrial Revolution, we're talking about serial manufacturing, mass production, blueprint design, right? Huge change in the way things are being produced. And the internet gave us computer-aided design and just-in-time production. So here we are today. What's coming next? What's coming next is 3D transformation. So it's completely seamless design, digital design, to digital production, 3D printing, right? And ultimately, we're talking about the next industrial revolution because we're talking about manufacturing that's done just in time, just in place. At a certain point, you will have a tube or a pipe coming into your house, just like electricity and water does now, with magic dust and an appliance that will 3D print anything for you, right? This is coming very soon. So these are the machines that, this is what we announced in May, and we're shipping our first industrial 3D printers, right? These are made for low-volume manufacturing. This is not a MakerBot. This is not just for modeling anymore. This is for manufacturing. It's kind of first generation for us in commercial production, right? And what's exciting about this is there's a concept of voxel, which is a volumetric pixel, and this is how you measure the resolution of 3D print. And the idea, we're now at 21 microns, which is about 4 human hairs, right? And we can print very quickly. But the idea is that very soon we'll be able to control voxel by voxel, transparency, translucency, the elasticity and strength of each voxel, the conductivity of each voxel, right? So the idea is that we can print real devices, not just a little figurine out of polymers, out of plastic, but real devices, right? This is coming very, very soon. So I'll show you a quick video about this, and hopefully the audio works. And it doesn't. All right, let's try this again. Okay, guys, let's get the audio working. Okay, I'll just dance. Technology failed. So I'll narrate. So the idea is that these are furnaces of the future, right? This is reality. It will change production and logistics and manufacturing entirely, right? And this is going to happen very, very soon, much sooner than you would expect. We can create new things. There's bioprinting, right? So very soon you'll have a surgeon printing out replacement parts for you, right, inside you, bone printing, etc. This is an example of what's already printed on our machines, which are real parts that can hold 5 tons and don't weigh much.
The things we make
right.
will
Here we
make
go.
us smarter, better, more human. What a future we'll create with new materials and embedded intelligence. Together, we'll bring extraordinary to the everyday and reality to dreams light years away. Welcome to the age of digital production, on demand, a world without waste, without inventory, without warehouses. Meet the first HP Jet Fusion 3D printers, the digital furnaces of the next industrial revolution. Join us as we engineer the never-before voxel by voxel. HP Multi-Jet Fusion. Keep reinventing.
So you heard about half of that, but you get the idea. And I'll post the slides so you can get a copy of the slides as well. I'll give you a link in a second. So what does that mean? So very soon we'll be able to print complete products, right? We'll be able to print integrated circuits. We'll be able to bioprint. We'll be able to print custom food. We'll be able to print custom vitamins that are just for you, not just in a bottle in the store, right? That are for your biology, right? And then something that's coming a little bit after that is the concept of 4D printing. So these are smart materials that will react to the environment they're in. So for example, an airplane wing that will react to the pressure or to the temperature outside, right? So these are materials that we've never had before, right? And if we go beyond that, we're looking at haptic holography, right? So this is something that's a little bit, mind-blowing altogether, but the idea of touching and feeling virtual objects. So there's already companies researching this, and at first it's kind of connecting to VR and being able to sense in VR, but sometime in the future, maybe 10, 20 years from now, we won't have furniture, we'll have virtual furniture that you can sit on, things like this. So the question is, what are you going to spend your time on, right? So as our next president will say, or has said, fail to plan, plan to fail. So my hope is to give you some ideas on what to invest your own personal non-refundable time into and where the future is going, right? So do a little bit of research. It's all a little scary. It's all unknown. But you really shouldn't be working on simple apps, investing your time into that today. You should be looking at where technology is going in the next 2, 5, 10 years and what kind of companies you need to be building from there. So if you'd like a copy of the slides, go to golem.net/Madrid. As Alex mentioned, I am writing a book, which is basically kind of an accelerator in a book. If you go to this link, you'll get first chapter and a little bit more info on it. So with that, we have a few more minutes. I'm happy to answer some questions for you.
Perfecto.
Do we have a microphone?
Sí, no. Sí, yo no le he visto. Yo le presenté el otro día, o sea que le conozco.
All right. Questions about the future? Okay?
I have one over
Oh, right,
there.
over here. Usually takes about 20 seconds to come up with a question.
Just saying that's been an amazing presentation. Thank you, Vitaly. So what, in terms of, you've been talking about different verticals or different industries where the 3D transformation can disrupt. Where do you see, you've been talking that HP is actually working on 3D industrial printers. How many years do you think it will take for that technology, or let's say a better mobile technology, to reach houses or households?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first generation of 3D printers were basically small printers that were for makers, for people to do basic models and simple things. And that kind of failed. A lot of people, in a sense, people are kind of writing big blog posts about the death of 3D printing. In reality, it was a good start, right? And there was kind of this trough of disillusionment, right? If any cycle we look at. Now we're getting into a point where 3D printing is cost competitive with subtractive manufacturing, right? So meaning a CNC machine, a big block of aluminum, use a water jet to make a part out of that. Now we're talking about that 3D printing, in our case, is 10 times faster than the previous generation of commercial 3D and a lot cheaper to produce. So we're getting now to small batch manufacturing. There will probably be 4 or 5 more generations before it comes full circle, and then we have a use case in the home again, right? Because for MakerBot, for most people, there's no use case. How many iPhone cases do you really need to print at home, right? It's going to be a question of what can you print that you use every day, right? And that may be food, that may be other supplies around the house. Ultimately, you'll order a pair of sneakers on Amazon, or Amazon of the future, and you'll print them out at home, right? That's the idea. So probably my guess would be somewhere 10 to 20 years. It's really hard to look anywhere beyond 5 years from now, because a lot of things can change. The artificial intelligence component of all this is also going to be an important factor. But the way, products are now going to be intellectual property. It's just going to be a set of designs that you're selling, not the actual manufacturing itself. It's going to change a lot of things. Right here up front.
Hi, this is Clara from Spain. You've been talking about 3D manufacturing and robotics and innovations coming from HP. Since we're in a conference for entrepreneurs, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the ventures and open innovation that HP is doing, and what do you think in the future these innovations are going to come from, and these research associations with universities or entrepreneurs, how do we reach HP for that?
Yeah, so I'm part of the corporate venture arm. We're part of the CTO office, and adjacent to us are HP Labs, which has been around for 50 years. So a lot of this innovation comes from HP Labs. They're very smart people that are highly, highly educated, that know material science and know a lot of these things. That's where a lot of this technology comes from. From the venture side, our goal is to actually fund companies that are in a lot of different categories. Specifically, we're looking at 3D printing, IoT, immersive, so VR and the whole cycle around VR, and smart machines, so artificial intelligence, robotics. We're investing in those categories globally, and we're looking for products and things that we can support to help grow that whole market, where eventually HP will participate with its own products, but we're looking to kind of support each category. So the best way is, talk to me, talk to my teammates. We have folks in Tel Aviv as well, in Israel. So we're based in Palo Alto in Israel, and we invest globally. And I travel a lot in Europe, especially to kind of cover all this as well. We work with some universities as well, but we try to support the whole ecosystem and help a lot of these things develop faster. That's our goal. I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah. Probably have time for one more.
No, we have a little bit more time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah,
Thanks
we,
for
we
your,
have time for a couple more.
Thanks for your presentation. Very informative. I wanted to connect two things that you talked about: the magic dust coming in and the voxel by voxel material customization or specification. So, can you say a little bit more about what happens between the tube coming in and the special stuff gets to every volume element?
Sure. So the way it works is basically at this point in our development technology is that the voxels are basically polymer sand. You can think of it that way. It gets spread on a platter, and there's a curing mechanism and curing agent that will then go very quickly over layer by layer and basically affect each voxel, each grain of sand on the platter. So as these agents get better, we're getting into kind of alchemy. The grain of sand will get smaller, and we'll be able to affect each one on kind of an atomic or subatomic level at some point, right? Where we'll be able to control, and not just, give it a pigment and make it colorful, but in the same way we can affect it and make it translucent or transparent. We can make it conductive or not conductive, right? Basically a voxel by voxel level. And as we shrink and the resolution goes up, right, with each grain getting smaller, and with us being more advanced and being able to control each one, that's how we're going to get into more advanced devices as we start building them. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, more questions, guys. We still have time. Come on. This is a great opportunity to pick his brain. He knows a lot. Come on, someone. No?
Last question. Make it good.
I can ask you one.
Go for it.
So, from a big perspective, you give a broad perspective of what you guys are investing in. But I want to ask you personally, what turns you on? What would be the deal that you would go like, fuck yeah?
High IRR. Essentially, I look at, out of all those categories, the two main categories that are driving the third industrial revolution are 3D printing, being able to manufacture on demand anything, and artificial intelligence. So I wrote an article on, I'm a contributor to TechCrunch as well, so if you search for my name on TechCrunch, you find my latest article, which talks about something that's a little bit scary. I think it's more interesting than kind of an exciting company, but something that's a little more scary is that in less than 10 years, AI will replace about a third of the jobs that people are doing, right? So the question is kind of, on the one hand, whoever develops that technology or the different component technologies will have amazing control and amazing wealth. But on the other hand, kind of at the government level, if we're not able to keep up with this, we're kind of screwed as a civilization. So if you look at, for example, the most popular profession in the United States is truck driver. 3 million truck drivers. And there are about 5 or 10 million more people that support them, right? Little restaurants along the way that feed them and all these things. So in about 5 years, there will be 0 million truck drivers in the US. And what's going to happen next, right? It's going to make 2009, 2008 look like a speed bump if we don't change things. So on the one hand, it's exciting to find companies that are outsmarting humans very fast, and it's real. On the other hand, we need to balance that, and it's a little bit scary as far as kind of if we don't make changes now to how governments work and how income works and all these things. What are we going to do when most people, the minimum education that's needed to have a job, that you'll be smarter than AI, will keep going up faster. And this third industrial revolution will happen within the period of one generation, right? The agricultural revolution took over 200 years. The industrial revolution with manufacturing took about 80 years, right? So this whole thing, about people that are being positive and saying that, these new jobs will be created that will replace the old jobs that are lost. In reality, people need to get retrained, right? We're not going to have this generational skip anymore. People will be irrelevant in their professions now, and they're going to struggle to retrain themselves for the professions of the future. So one of the questions is, how do we educate our children for this future? So interesting, hope to blow your mind a little bit, not to depress you.
So you're looking for the teenager that's building that AI.
Yeah, well, right now you're going to find not teenagers, but you're going to find core AI research PhDs, which there haven't been that many up to this point, but something in like 2 years, there are about 300 core AI PhDs graduating from Carnegie Mellon, University of Waterloo, Cambridge, and one university in Japan that escapes me right now. But that's kind of the 4 core universities graduating core AI researchers. So everything is going to speed up very, very quickly. I highly recommend you spend some time with AI and think about how it's going to change the things you're working on.
Yeah, so very quickly, if you had to give a piece of advice for the future of the audience here, what they should study or what they should research to be employable?
Well, first of all, entrepreneurs are unemployable, right? Because you don't want to work for somebody, right? If you work for somebody, you're working on their dream. You want to work on your own dream. So we're in an entrepreneurship conference. My advice to you is do your own thing once you feel you're prepared. But what you should really be looking at is, again, what's coming next, right? And what's coming next is not a dog walking app or a food delivery app or things like this. These are too simple. These are kind of solved problems. There's not much opportunity left there. The question is, what's coming next? And you really have to think hard kind of down the line. Don't just flippantly say, oh, I have this idea, I'm going to start a company, because you're going to dedicate 5 to 8 years of your life to this, and you can only do this a few times, right? You're not going to live forever. You're not going to be able to do the entrepreneurial lifestyle 80 hours a week forever, right? You really have to think about what it is that you're going to work on, where your talents are, where your knowledge, experience, and education is relative to where, the exciting things coming in the future and the future trends that are coming. So AI is certainly one of those. If you studied hard sciences, I would recommend jumping into material science and looking at 3D printing and related things to 3D printing and 3D transformation. Those are the key areas that I would focus on.
Okay, Vitaly, always a pleasure having you here. Please, massive applause to Vitaly Golub. So, for a lot of these things to actually happen, there's a part of our day-to-day lives as entrepreneurs, as people in technology that I believe we don't value enough, which is the fact that, you open your laptop, you get your phone, and it's connected. You don't think about your connection. You don't think about your 3G, your 4G. You don't think about the Wi-Fi anymore until, obviously, the Wi-Fi stops working, like what happens in conferences. And then you go like, oh, shit, the internet is down. Now, our next talk is actually going to be around those topics and what's actually coming next. What's the future of connectivity from people that are actually on the ground, that they're building the next wave of connected technology. So our next panel is about connectivity and 5G and fueling the digital revolution. So we've decided to transform the panel into a fire chat. So I want to welcome our 2 next speakers. So on one side, Luis Ignacio Vicente del Olmo. He's the Return on Innovation Manager at Telefónica. Please, big applause. And welcome Manuel Lorenzo, Head of Tech and Innovation at Ericsson Spain. Come on, guys. It's the last talk, last day. Give them some energy.
Well, good morning. Thank you very much, Alex, for this kind of presentation. It's a pleasure to be here in South Summit talking about connectivity. My name is Luis Ignacio Vicente. I'm Return on Innovation Manager in Telefónica. Our focus is how it's possible to increase the revenue on innovation. Maybe easy, but obviously the question is, I am the only person around the world with this particular title, so I think that we are innovative also when we are creating titles within Telefónica. 25 years ago, the first mobile generation was deployed, and I was there, so I have a bit experience talking about these kind of things. And obviously, maybe as you know, the first and second mobile generation give us mobility. The second generation give us the mobile internet. Fourth generation that we are deploying, we're trying to deploy the similar user experience for mobile communication than fixed or wireline communications. And now we're developing the 5 generations. When we're talking 5G generation, obviously we're talking about high speed, we're talking about ultra broadband, but also we're trying to deploy new functionalities, for example, the wall slicing. I think also we're trying to talk about low latencies. And also it's very important that we're not talking only about mobile communication, we're talking also about fixed wireline communication, because we are balanced to contexts. Software design networks, SDN. So software is very relevant when we are creating the new networks, and machine visualization. So I think this is a very relevant concept when we're talking as entrepreneurs ecosystem like this, because I think we are open the evolution of the network from the hardware to software, and we're talking about software, obviously. I think we are creating a new framework, a new paradigm when we're talking about these kind of things. And also, for example, we're using now 5G in order to revisiting all the questions about intellectual property, for example. We're trying to balance the questions about how it's possible to balance patents and software open source, for example. We're using the particular 5G for this kind of opportunities. The key question today, when we're talking about the 5G, obviously, is to identify the clear application. So this is the reason also, because I think this is a good challenge for entrepreneurs. How it's possible to create value using this kind of new networks. So, and also, I think it's very relevant, and this is the question I would like to share with you. I think it's possible to involve startups and small companies in the evolution of this particular network. And this is obviously, I think, is new in relation with the previous networks. I think with a similar approach that Vitaly was commenting now, I think we're promoting use cases, because I think it's very difficult now to match the opportunities from vertical sectors and the opportunities for technology. So it's necessary to promote conversation in the other question, talking about, obviously, critical communication, massive communications. Obviously, I think 5G is the network for smart cities, for smart industry. For example, in Europe, the European Commission is promoting this kind of conversations between car manufacturing sector and ICT sector in order to identify how it's possible to promote these things. Also, I think that it's very relevant for us, for the big companies. I think Ericsson and Telefonica were the more relevant companies, in particular in Spain and in Southern Europe, talking about R&D. And the question is how it's possible to identify these new opportunities. So we are creating open spaces. And for discuss about these particular things, I had the pleasure to introduce Manuel Lorenzo. Manuel is Director of Technology and Innovation in Ericsson R&D Spain. I think he's one of the most relevant persons we're talking about 5G in South of Europe. And I would like to share with you some ideas that we're creating around how it's possible to develop together 5G.
Thank you so much, Luis. Well, now that no one is recording and we can be totally honest, imagine just this type of conference 2 years ago and someone asking, you are very well aware of what digitization is, aren't you? Everyone would not, but no one would really know what they are saying. We have to be careful with 5G. And now we'll make the question, are you aware of what 5G is? Please raise your hands. Okay. I come with the good news. Probably you know what it is, but you don't know that it was called like that. The context of 5G is the same as the context for digitization. If you look for 4 pillars of digitization, you will fall into thinking of artificial intelligence, big data and analytics, cloud, and superconnectivity. That makes the whole puzzle of technologies that can help you make a customer-centric solution for your customers. So superconnectivity has to do, and this is something new in moving from 3G to 4G, to moving to 4G to 5G, has to do with both access, super fast technology, powerful technology for being able to have higher bandwidth, lower latencies, fast communications, and the cloud. Today, much more than half of the traffic in the internet is mobile. So it's the whole internet what is changing, and it can change for our benefit as users, but it can really change for the benefit of businesses. How many businesses are involved here? Virtually all of them, all the industry sectors. We may be talking, and we had a fantastic chat before this one, about self-driven cars, and that's futuristic, but happening. We may talk about manufacturing, we may talk about remote surgery, and we may talk about a number of use cases that are today in the board of decisions in many companies. And they can wait until there is a full 5G deployment, or they can be an active part in making it happen faster for them. And then they can really be more competitive and compete with other sectors, cooperate with other sectors, and outsmart their competitors. This is the context. Otherwise, there's no point for 5G. It's not that we engineers can do it. It's not that operators can launch it as a service. It's not like that. It's that industries are demanding this for their core business. It's not accessory. It's necessary for them. So let me go. That's the context. Can I give you just a few hints about figures? And basically, there's three aspects that are going to be changed according to our studies for 2021. We will have basically three vectors of change. We'll have more usage, we'll have more users, and we will have more things connected. So talking about usage, the expectation, the necessity is that in 2021 there will be 10 times more traffic than today. We need to cope with that because it's a real necessity. Talking about users, we'll reach the 9 billion users in 2021 from the 7 billion today, or 7 billion subscriptions. And talking about things, at least 1.5 billion things will be connected through mobile networks. So that's something to address. And it's not only for us, the Ericssons, the Nokias, the Telefonicas, the Vodafones. It's not only for us. It's for entrepreneurs who can find an opportunity to leverage that for a business. And that's basically why we're here today. We are not here to pitch or preach about 5G. It's about you to welcome to be part of 5G innovation. Okay. Then there's a number of interesting technical parameters that I will be glad to share on the challenges that we engineers need to fix in this limited time towards the framework, to the time frame of 2020 and 2025. But I maybe can skip it. The important thing is, what is it needed for? We have a fantastic demo showing why very fast connections are required for virtual reality. You have a couple of guys playing remotely with a virtual reality, sending a ball to each other and trying to catch it. Today, unfortunately, with the powerful networks we have, it's impossible. They will not be able to play. A surgeon will not be able to go through an operation with a remote patient. It will not work. With the fast connectivity that we can bring with 5G, it will be possible if a business model can be found for that. As usual, because this is high-tech and brings risk and the necessity of finding other models. In a virtual reality game, it is possible to totally spend your quota of data in a single minute for the whole month. So super cool, super challenging. And that's where more brains have to come into the picture to find other types of business models. We need to really challenge the ecosystem itself of today. Well, that's the part. We want this to be more of a conversation. Of course, we need to wait until the questions, but please raise your hand, especially if you now understand what 5G is a little bit.
Very important.
It will make me happier. And finally, how can we do this? We are a company, Ericsson, with 100,000 people. We acknowledge we are not enough people, and we acknowledge that we have to work with so many other companies. We have to prove that not in the big market research and in the big corporations globally, but also locally. And the initiative we took in Spain, in Madrid in particular, not only because I'm always looking for reasons to stay in Madrid as a guy from Alicante, but the initiative we launched, we were happy to join the founding initiative of 5Tonic. That's why I keep this paper with me. Please, if you can come to the Telefonica Open Future area, please go and grab one of them. This is a real association of companies promoting the creation of value in Madrid for 5G with concrete cases. How are we doing that? First of all, we need to invest in a large-scale pilot facility for piloting projects. But more importantly, we need to engage with a number of vertical companies with a huge presence in the world. And we do have them in Spain, and we can welcome them from other countries as well. We have so many important companies in the manufacturing, in the textile, in the gaming area, in audio and video, safety. It's all the sectors that the European Union is prioritizing for the future of 5G. We can have a real first pilot in Spain. And we have all the tools that those companies, vertical companies, can use to test that in advance. So they don't have to be the late adopters of 5G, but the best and first adopters of it with our support. And maybe the missing piece was, again, some business models that we can launch well in advance, and the brains, bringing more ideas. The match between our classical way of thinking with connectivity and the needs for industries going through digitization can very well be coming from entrepreneurs. So, coming to the point, maybe me or you can comment on the challenge that we're launching. I can continue with that. We're so glad to launch the first innovation contest
which is one, please.
on 5G. It will be open very soon, 15th of October to 15th of November. We'll see. We'll see how it works. We are super interested in more people raising their hands from all over the world to work with us in this challenge. And we are offering that in December they will be pitching to the steering board of 5Tonic, our initiative that I commented. And we'll be so happy to announce that who is awarded as a winner in the Mobile World Congress in 2017. That is cool, that's perception, that's a lot of things, but something more important is that the awarded winner will be working with us, will be a full associate startup company to 5Tonic for 6 months, interacting with our best experts, working with our user experience guys who are designing potential business models, using our tools, our lab, getting access to the vertical companies we are already talking to. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for a startup, and it's also a fantastic opportunity for us in 5Tonic to open even more our way of thinking in innovation and get to new avenues that we haven't explored. So you're most welcome to join here. You can connect to us, any of the companies in 5Tonic, and if you get the brochure, you can really find the contact persons there. And try it, because it's worth it, and spread the word to your colleagues.
Yes, I think it's very relevant that for this particular initiative, we are inviting you to take part of our particular 5G ecosystem, but also we are open our markets to you. And very relevant for me, last but not least, we are sharing with you our knowledge about connectivity. Suppose you know companies like Ericsson and Telefonica, we have relevant experts about how we are creating this kind of technologies. We have people working on the standards, where people working on intellectual property related to these particular questions, obviously. And also it's possible to take part of this particular ecosystem. And also, I think we are thinking about your new ideas, because obviously I think, I mentioned it before, we need this kind of new use cases with obviously we are looking for the killer application related to 5G. And also I think this is a very good opportunity for you. Obviously I think we are looking for maybe startups working around connectivity, or that are using a new way for connectivity, because in some cases maybe you have good ideas that need new functionality that is impossible today to deploy with our current networks. For example, when we're talking about gaming, when we're talking about some particular delays, obviously I think it's very, very difficult to create new services. But I think today it's possible to imagine new services around the new networks. This is the opportunity I will have on the table.
Very good. So then we can open for questions now. Please.
Candidates.
Try to be the first one before Ruben is asking something as a 5G entrepreneur.
Do you have any priority in this kind of ideas you are looking for? I mean, you are looking more for killer application for 5G, for software-based ideas, for hardware. Do you have any priority in this sense?
Okay. Not really in the sense that we are open to really see what you're proposing. We think that we don't have a, this is important, I think I want to comment. In general, the open innovation approach, as understood 10 years ago, is a little bit wasted. I mean, it's not the big company or the big association looking for the gap to fill with another company, a small company that is doing that. We are not in that situation today. We are not in the situation of the big cooperating with the small so that you have the lot that you're expecting. We are open to surprise. What we need to do now is to keep on cooperating leaders with leaders. That's the whole game. A startup can be a leader in its field for the application to security or for the application to gaming. And we want to have that open and in the same conditions dialogue with them. So is it about hardware? Is it about software? Is it about applications? We don't care now. We want to make sure that it's not just a bilateral classical connection where we talk a lot about IPR and these things, but that we work in a star fashion, connecting different dots. We're connecting a vertical with a name and a surname who will be investing in this because they are drafting their digitization strategies today and enforcing them next year towards 5G. To work with a startup, with several of us, and even with several of our competitors. The rules of the game for competition are not here yet. So we are totally open to that. And of course, it's a contest. There has to be rules. We will publish that. But it's not about giving a prize and award and get a picture. It's about this cooperation. We can facilitate a cooperation for 6 months. 6 months for a startup is a lot of time. A lot of time. A lot of things can be done. Learned, discarded, a lot of progress can happen as well. So that's the real award that we're proposing.
Yes, I think. In our case, in Telefónica, as you know, we have other initiatives that open future, that is possible also to know and to have more information here in South Summit. We are promoting, in collaboration with other companies, this initiative in parallel, more focus on connectivity. For me, it's very important that we are trying to deploy new initiatives that is impossible to deploy with the current state of the art, talking about connectivity. Because I think many times we are imagining solutions that is possible to deploy now using 4G, for example, but we're trying to go beyond, and this is, for me, a critical point from the technological aspect when we are trying to go there. In some cases, it's necessary to test. Is it possible to do with the current connectivity, or is it necessary to go beyond? But obviously, I think our experts and ourselves, we could test these kind of things. Obviously, I think my experience is even maybe one day discussing about these topics with experts from the ICT sector, obviously, I think it's a good opportunity because I think, for example, when we're talking about new services, I think it's normal to see people from Ericsson or Telefónica or Intel or other companies collaborating with Photonic now, talking about how it's possible to deploy, for example, the new platforms on internet, for example. But obviously, it's not easy to have a good access to our experts about networks, about connectivity, because this is a typical inside innovation during a lot of time. And we are open our innovation also talking about connectivity, and this is a good moment, I think.
I mean, of course, today we are talking about this contest. It's super important. This is the right place to call for it. We are so grateful to Maria for giving us the opportunity. But it's also about normal cooperations. You can be in your companies, and you can approach us. You can join our project. Last week, we were celebrating the first 5G for Verticals big conference in Spain when we put it in a plan like 6 months ago that we should go out there and not only talk to 3 or 6 companies, but 40. We said 40. And there were almost 200 attendants there. So it's huge momentum. It's not that we are really looking for big companies to adopt 5G is that they are looking on how to adopt it, what for, and we can have an open dialogue on that.
Trying to learn our message, maybe interesting to share with you that in this particular event last week, we introduced our first 3 use cases, one of them about smart industry or industry 4.0 with a company called Innovalia, a Max company in north of Spain, creating particular machines for the car manufacturing industry, for example. The second use case is about Tourings. Smart Tourings is a really good content, obviously, in Spain, and we're trying to discuss with the touring sector how it's possible to use 5G technology for new applications. And the third use case was about emergencies, in particular with SAMUR, the particular emergency industry or organization in Madrid, in this particular city. We are trying to study how it's possible to improve these emergency services from SAMUR for the typical people living in Madrid.
More questions, guys? One there, and then we go there.
Okay, just so you mentioned innovation around business models as well. I'm quite interested about that. And how do you think that 5G is going to affect the business models, in particular for technology and content providers?
Well, who can take it? I can take it. Well, it's for sure going to affect it, and it's going to affect it in the bottom line. First of all, our reference model is that you have a subscription for 4G, 3G, and then you use it as a... That's not the case anymore. It's about industries. It's not about the employees having a SIM. It's about people in the company using the technology for something, machines in the company using the technology for something. So the models that we know today will for sure change. That is one clear aspect. The other one is the competition in the industries, because they can really pay more for certain facilities, certain possibilities of connectivity and cloud that they don't have today. If you think only of the extra or the need for security, security is something that is being paid today in certain models, very classical models. It can really be challenged with this because it can be embedded in the network and be part of your contract. I mean, so on and so forth. So many things that we have to challenge.
Sorry for the interruption, but obviously I think we're very studying the evolution for the 3G to 4G. Obviously, I think the impact to our business model is not so clear. So we are more or less the same services with a different network. And when we're talking about the evolution to 5G, obviously I think we are creating a lot of impact. For example, when we're talking about smart industry, I think we are creating new business around big data and how it's possible to talk about new services around the old products and the kind of things, more connectivity. For example, when we're talking car connected, obviously we are talking about 5G. It's difficult today to create good businesses about a car connected industry without 5G. So we are thinking this out. So we're talking about big data, we're talking about Internet of Things when we're talking about 5G.
I mean, it's pretty easy to guess that there will be new marketplaces for industries, for new tools. The app environment we know today is for end users, basically, and with a given set of rules. This will probably be different for companies. Now they go to the suppliers, maybe they go to a big marketplace where they can get embedded connectivity, computing facilities, and big data in a bundled approach. So we are open to this. We want this to happen. We learned a lot from the move from 3G to 4G about how things accelerate when there's more people in the ecosystem and how certain things become unbalanced or are balanced works of condition in the ecosystem. But with 5G, it's the industry's pull who will drive it. So it's a strong investment there.
More questions, I think?
And, yeah.
For your presentation, where in the world seen are other pioneers, corporate pioneers in your direction? And do you think of, for example, sharing common goals of where this should go, like just knowledge base, or future goals of where the focus should be on technology and implementation.
Yeah. You mean goals for this association, goals in general, or for 5G?
For this and in general, or as we are sharing with other companies from another, let's say, countries or continents even, to see where this goes.
This is really happening at all levels. It's I mean, you can complement my answer, but at global level, it's all regions moving. It's all regions competing, all their industries competing to be first to adopt 5G. If you look into Europe, 2 weeks ago, there is a full roadmap of European priorities for 5G published, saying very strong things about what should change to 5G in 2020 and in 2025. So for that, we cooperate globally with all the other companies and all the stakeholders. But the point is that it's not about waiting until 5G comes from somewhere and lands in Spain. It's that we want Spain to be a pioneering country in 5G. And for that, Fivetonic is the association that we have created. It's open by definition. So in just 1 year, we have 7 members, if I'm not, or 8, if I'm not getting wrong, and 4 associate verticals. So it's on the global, on the regional, and on the country level.
Yes. Well, I think obviously we're talking about a very competitive race versus Asia, versus the US. And also I think with this open approach, I think this is a possibility from the European side, and it is possible to try to win this particular race. But obviously Ericsson and Telefonica and other companies were pushing the European Commission in order how it's possible to create a European strategy for this kind of question, but obviously I think it's the stories.
Okay guys, so we're out of time. Once again, thank you so much for sharing the
Thank
future
you.
with us. Big applause to both of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so this is all for today, for this stage. This was our last talk. I hope you enjoyed it. And well, first of all, another applause for you guys for being here. Please, thank you very much. And now we're going to open there's going to be the opening ceremony, the final ceremony of the closing of the conference on the main stage, on the arena stage. I don't know if you've seen it. We're going to have Quique Sarasola as the keynote speaker, and then we're going to have, if I remember correctly, the mayor of Madrid giving a talk and addressing the finalists of the competition and talking about the winners. So guys, let's all move to the arena. Thank you very much. Have fun for the rest of the conference.